Hi, Chiara. Hi. Thank you for taking the time to tell us all about your experiences with trade shows. Could you just introduce yourself briefly and explain kind of your languages and the types of translations that you do?
Yes, first of all, hi Sarah, and thanks for having me here. So my name is Chiara Vecchi. I work from English and German into Italian. I specialize in marketing translations, lifestyle and beauty translations, travel and tourism translations, and medical translations because I work in partnership with a medical consultant. I'm based in Italy and I haven't been a translator for all my life. After my translation studies, I worked in sales and marketing for a while, also as in-house project manager, in-house translator. And then basically I went back to my old love. So now I'm a freelance translator again. I think that's it basically.
It's really good that you've got the sales and marketing experience and project manager. That must help, like when you're doing sales and marketing yourself, and just that added experience of being inside a company and seeing things from the customer perspective as a translator.
Yeah, it does. Also because since we're talking about trade fairs today, I've been to trade fairs on the other side of the booth. So I was among the exhibitors, and it's really helped me to understand how things work when you're super tired and you can't stand anyone to come to the booth and things like that. And I think this has really helped me when it was my turn to approach exhibitors and talk to them and feel confident about doing it.
That's perfect. Yeah, I can imagine. I've only been on the other side kind of to a certain extent. But yeah, having that experience as an exhibitor as well, knowing what goes into it and the planning and all the lead up. Yeah, that's a brilliant experience.
Yeah, although I think it's probably easier on our side than on the exhibitor side. At least it's tiring for us, but we can choose how many days we want to go. Well, it's definitely tougher for exhibitors, I would say.
Yeah, see, that's a great thing to know as well, because like when we go as translators to these events, we I kind of put more importance on the exhibitors and worry about speaking to them, but actually knowing that they're building themselves up for this event, and they're going to be there for 3 days, and we can do whatever we want. You know, that can give us a little bit more confidence sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And we also need to remember that, okay, this might be the brand you really want to work for or a company you have been following for a long time. But at the end of the day, you're talking to people, and these people might have sour feet like you, or might have had a really long day like you. So sometimes empathizing is a really good thing, especially because you're there as a potential supplier, not as a potential buyer. So people are also likely to be more relaxed with you because they don't have to like perform their best in a way, but they can also like talk to you about the products, tell you their impressions about the fair and so on. So that's a good opportunity for you as well to make the other person feel good, and then maybe you can strike a conversation.
So let's start with the types of events that you attend. What kind of events do you attend? Are they typically trade shows or other kinds of events?
So far, it's been only trade shows and not conferences. This is mainly due to two factors. First of all, I live quite close to Bologna. For those who don't know it, it's a city in the north of Italy. It has quite big fair premises, and there are a lot of fairs that are held there. And I'm lucky enough to be close, and there are a few fairs that match my specialization, so it's not too hard to go there. And also conferences are usually farther away from where I live. And since I have a small baby at the moment, I take one day off from the morning to the evening to go there. And this is what I can commit to right now. But I don't exclude to go to conferences later on, or maybe trade fairs abroad, because there are a few nice ones in Germany and in London too.
But Bologna is a beautiful city as well, so it's a nice location to go to. And yeah, if you live close, I would definitely always recommend maximize your kind of location as much as possible, because then you can just go for a day and it makes it a lot more accessible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're coming from abroad, like you're taking a plane, then you can like attach a few days to visit the city or the surroundings, wherever you are. But like for me, the best thing to do is like to drive there, because I live quite close, then make the most out of the day and then come back. Also because it's really tiring. So doing 2 or 3 days in a row, it definitely tires you. I've spoken to other translators who have done that 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row, and they were knackered after that.
Yes, I've done that. Yeah. I think the second day, I never go for like the full 3 days. I would always only do kind of 1.5 or 2 days maximum, and that's enough. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
completely overloaded. Yeah. Are they in your specialist areas, or do you find that there's one of your specialist areas, perhaps the client industry, that has more events than others?
In Bologna, I definitely have more events connected to lifestyle and beauty, and that's my specializations. Well, for example, travel and tourism events are really common in London. So I focus on those events when I go there, and I use other channels to market myself to sort of like medical companies and travel and tourism companies. But yeah, it's good for lifestyle and beauty, definitely. Although there are also other fairs. Like right now, if I'm not mistaken, there's a huge tile and ceramics trade fair right now in Bologna. So it can really vary, and it depends on what you specialize in, basically. And this applies also to other trade premises. If there are some big ones like Berlin or London, you just have to look for what you want, and you'll definitely find something.
Yeah. So how do you, so you're looking mainly for the fairs in your client's industry. Do you do anything else kind of to identify the right fairs? So perhaps, I mean, look at the exhibitors in advance and see if there are international exhibitors, or what kind of do you do to identify the right event?
Well, first of all, since my main sort of like the way I make sure I decide, okay, I can go, I don't go, is like proximity. Right now is like, okay, I can choose between Milan, Bologna, and so on. But I usually have a look at the exhibitors of the past edition, because usually you can find them online. And then check if there are, as you said, any international exhibitors, because I usually target companies that are not Italian companies. So for example, if I see that there are only, I don't know, 5 companies coming from abroad, I might decide that it's not worth going. Of course, it's the other way around. If you work, like if you're based in your target language country, then it might be like a great idea to go. And also I research the companies online, as you said. I see if they already have the website translated, if they have any marketing materials translated, if they have an online presence targeting Italy. And then I try to check if they are on LinkedIn, if any of them is on LinkedIn, not just the company. And then I usually send a LinkedIn connection, just asking, oh, I've seen that your company is exhibiting at this and this fair. Do you think you will be there too? And sometimes the person says, oh, yes, I'll be there too. And I usually try to ask people from marketing departments. Some people might say, oh, yes, I'll be there too. Some people might say, oh, no. And so then I usually ask if they know the name of the person who will be there, so that when you go to the booth, then you already have at least someone to talk to, rather than just talking to the first person you meet. So yeah, this is basically the preparation that I do in terms of like companies to research. And then I also make sure that I have a sort of like plan on whom to visit first and then second and so on, because otherwise you walk for the whole day. So you need to sort of like rationalize, yeah. The way you walk around the fair. So something like you pick a hall, you start from there, then you go to the next hall and to the next one, so that you don't have to go back and forth unless you have someone telling you something like, oh, he's in a meeting right now, would you mind coming back like this afternoon? Then it's okay doing that. But if not, it's better to have a plan and stick to it, because you're definitely going to like walk for a long time.
Yeah, and with trade fairs, I thought they always provide so much information in advance, so you can do a lot of kind of investigative work. They normally have the plan where each exhibitor is going to be. You have like a description of each company. Sometimes they even give you the contact name of the people who are going to be there, or the representatives.
Exactly.
But your tip about contacting them on LinkedIn and asking if they're going to be the person, and then if not, finding out who the person is really good, because it might not be like they might be spread, they might have like multiple events in the next few days and they've divided it up between them. So the person who deals with translation, who you really want to talk to, might not be the person actually exhibiting. But by doing that advanced preparation, and it's a nice kind of message to send on LinkedIn as well, because we worry sometimes about contacting people on LinkedIn, like what do we say? But by asking if you're going to be at the event, you've already got a kind of a link, a warm link, because you can be there, you could potentially meet them, and it's not pushy, it's not unusual, it's just like a nice connection request.
Exactly. And the worst thing that can happen is that you don't get any replies and your connection request is not accepted. So it's not the end of the world. Also, usually at trade fairs, you get a lot of people from sales department, while translations is usually handled by either the marketing department or in other companies by the purchasing department, because we might not see it that way, but for some companies, it's like another product that you need. And usually you will never find people from the purchasing department at trade fairs, because companies are there basically to showcase their products, to sell their products, to make new connections. And so you have your best people there, and they are the salespeople. So a good thing is always to ask for the name of the person in charge of that when you are there, rather than just giving your business card and say, oh yeah, could you please give it to the person who deals with translation, so that at least you have someone to chase, especially if you were not able to find anyone on LinkedIn or so on. Also about the email address, yeah, the websites of trade fairs are usually very precise about that, but companies usually tend to give you a very general address, unless they are usually like smallish companies, something like info at or hello at. So you would like to make sure that you have at least a name, especially if you want to follow up with a call or with an email, because otherwise, if it's a big company and you don't have someone who is that great filtering emails as they come in, you risk that your email after a couple of weeks will just go astray.
That's a good point as well about getting the name of the person. Like, don't just give your business card over, get some information that you can use to keep yourself like in control of the situation, because it's highly unlikely that you're going to be high on the priority list of the sales team.
Oh no, absolutely no.
Down to you to connect with them and follow up afterwards. So you need that information. I think the first couple of trade shows I went to, I handed out my business card a lot more than collected information. So you learn that pretty quickly. So yeah, we're here to stop other people making those mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you get the business card of someone who's like from sales, just take it. Don't just say, oh no, don't worry, because there might be some important information down there, especially maybe like a phone number that it's not like the general phone number. At least you know how the address will end, like at thiscompany.com or .co.uk and so on. Yeah, it's a lot more important to collect business cards rather than give them out, because you're definitely going to follow up, while they might not even know that they need translations when you approach them.
Yeah, Yeah, so shall we talk about how to approach them? Because I think this is one of the biggest concerns that a lot of people have, and I completely understand it. I've had this in the past, and that's why I've contacted them in advance, and makes it a lot easier to strike up that conversation. But what tips would you give if somebody's gone to an event, they perhaps haven't had chance to prepare in advance, if they haven't been able to do that, but they just don't know how to strike up a conversation? Have you got any tips? What do you normally do?
What I normally, there are basically two approaches that I've seen so far. One is more sort of like salesy and one is more open. I'm saying salesy in a sort of like nicely way. One thing is the salesy approach is like asking a question where no matter if you answer with yes or no, you will definitely have something to say. And the question can be something like, oh, hi, I'm a translator. Have you ever heard of translations? Or something similar. And if the person says yes, then you can say, oh, do you usually translate your content or something like that? If the person says no, absolutely not, then you can still keep the conversation going. But we need to remember, sorry, that these are salespeople, so they might not be that interested in striking up a conversation about translation. So usually I do prefer the other approach, which might be more direct, but at least it's more open. And I go there and say, oh, hello, I'm an Italian translator specializing in lifestyle and beauty, for example, if I'm talking to a beauty company. Do you plan to translate any of your marketing materials or your website or something like that into Italian in the future? And then depending on what the other person replies, then you can go on in different ways. The other person can just say no, and just be prepared for that. And you can say, okay, thank you, bye. The other person can just say maybe, oh, not really right now. I'm not sure. We're still looking for a distributor in Italy, and then we'll have the need to hire a translator. And then you can like go on, or some people might tell you something like, oh, we do all our translations in-house. That's usually like amusing, because sometimes then you see something that like on the booth or in the marketing materials that is horrible. But that's a good occasion for you to take home some of like those leaflets and things like that, and maybe ask to do a free trial offer for translation or proofreading, as you told us, Sarah, in your direct marketing course. So try to think of what those people can answer when they don't answer no, and we're not interested. And try to come up with maybe another question or maybe a sort of like short proposal. And also remember that you might not be the only person on the booth. So you're not like pitching people for like 10 minutes. Like those conversations usually last, I would say 3 to 4 minutes, like when they're really long. So just make sure that you get the contact details of the person you've spoken to, of the relevant person if they're not there. And then just like walk away and make sure that you take some notes, because you're definitely going to forget after like 10 different companies. And also practice in front of the mirror. And I know this sounds like stupid, but it definitely helps, like to make eye contact, to shake hands if you are in a country where it's now okay to shake hands due to COVID and things like that. And pretend you're in front of someone and you need to say, oh, hi, I'm, I don't know, a Spanish into French translator, and try to smile. And thing that I do is every single time I go to a trade fair, I always start with a company I'm pretty sure will say, no, we're not interested. So a really low key company that is almost not important, I pick one at the beginning of the whole, and I start with that one. So that I, yeah. Exactly. So sort of, yeah, exactly. So you can do this if you want, or if you need some sort of like more, I don't know, some sort of support, you can also go with a partner in crime. with another translator, maybe someone with a different language base, so that you don't feel you are like competing against each other, but then you can like rehearse together this if you want to online before you do that, so that you have someone looking at you. And I think just be open, ask questions, because sometimes people just like to be able to talk about their products freely without having to like persuade you to buy, because you're definitely not going to do that because you're offering your services.
Some people do the translations in-house. I thought that was more a feature of into English. Like I translate from German into English, and I get that quite a lot, that they do the translation in-house because they haven't found anyone that kind of understands or can speak English, so why not? But I didn't think you would get it so much into Italian. So you still get that response.
It really depends. Sometimes you have, they are distributors, so they are Italians and they have like foreign brands and they do the translations in-house. Sometimes you usually have the Italian who emigrated and they do the translations in-house, whatever the outcome might be. So it really depends. Or sometimes what happened to me too was that there was one owner who knew German, and he was doing the translations, but he was quite happy to drop this because for him it was just a waste of time, in the sense that he had to focus on other things. And this is also how we should sort of like see translations sometimes when we go to trade fairs. I mean, for us it's like the most important thing. But we might be able to sort of like shift focus and think, for these people, finding someone who can deal with that like will save their time, energy and money. And this is like the main concern. It's not like, oh, we found like the best freelancer ever. They want someone who's there when they need them, someone who's responsive. And we also need to like approach them as consultants, not just, oh, I'm a little like freelancer or something like that. You're a business too. So be proud that you're there and that you're doing this. So this, I think this is a good confidence boost, at least to think about, especially after you've like had like 2 or 3 hard no's in a row.
Yeah, it's really good. I've also found that going with somebody else, like I've gone to one trade show where I do German into English and then somebody else does English into German, and that's quite nice because you can kind of present yourself as a team. And I don't know, it gives you a bit of a confidence boost, but it also, you approach things in different ways. So it's nice to see what somebody else would do, and then you do it in a slightly different way. You might have different specialisms, so like the other person can strike up a conversation about this particular thing. Because I find it quite useful. I go to a lot of technical kind of chemical coatings, things like that, those kind of conferences and trade shows. And one of the tips I always say to people is be interested in the products, because obviously the salespeople and technical people are there to sell the products. They're fully invested. So if you show interest, which is usually genuine because you are interested in this area, you've chosen this specialism for
exactly.
So like taking an interest and like positioning them as an expert, like you say, you're an equal to them, but you can position them still as an expert and say, oh, tell me more about this. Yeah, how do you find this? Do you know, how's the fair been? If you've been there for a couple of days, it's the second day, you could ask them how it's going for them. You know, those kind of small talk, but it helps kind of break the ice, and showing an interest does often bring up some more information, because they then want to know what specifically are you interested in, and then they start asking you the questions like, who are you, which company are you with, and then you kind of introduce yourself as a translator that way as well.
Yeah, that's so true, especially if booth is like empty, there's no one, then usually salespeople are happy to have someone there because it makes everything look livelier and things like that. So if a booth is empty, that's a great time to go and visit it. While if you see that there are tons of people there, you should also know that at some point it will be time to like walk away, because then you don't want to like come across as the one who sort of like stays there and like make them waste their time. But yeah, your advice is great. And if you can either present yourself as a team, like, oh, it's the two of us and we work together, or what we did, the two of us, Rhiannon and me, we have different language combination, like completely different language combinations, but we would like meet up like every hour or so and like share insights and like, oh, this, like, you should go here to this hall, it's really good and everything. And then it like you like have someone to back you up and like to cheer you up, and that really helps, especially if you're very shy or a bit of an introvert, and I am, but you should take it as a sort of like, not as a game, but as a nice experience anyway, because you will definitely learn something new, whatever the outcome in terms of like clients, leads and contacts is.
Yeah, no, definitely having someone to just have a cup of coffee with and debrief. It'll take your mind off it if you get the opportunity to meet up with somebody who you wouldn't normally meet as well. So you're developing that colleague relationship.
Exactly.
And there are always very conveniently spaced kind of rest areas and quiet areas. So if it does get too much, you can just go to one of those, make your notes. The last trade show I went to, I messaged a colleague of mine who we were kind of worked together in this field. And every time I learned something new, I'd kind of say, right, I've seen this exhibitor and this is what we said. And they talked about this could be interesting. A live feed almost from my results. And then if she could then respond and say, oh yeah, I've seen this one, like go and have a look at this company, or that's really interesting, like grab grab some more information about that.
Exactly.
And undercover sleuthing kind of in the office while I was out there. There are lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah, that's a great way to make it, because that is what it should be, because it's usually a really tiring day, so you need to like be in a good mood from the beginning to the end. So sort of like, how can I say, like, yeah, I mean, have fun. This is probably the main focus of the day, so that you also come up as a like smiling person and so on, rather than like be grumpy and everything, because everyone is going to be tired at some point. Those people in the booth know it like a lot better than you.
Yeah. No, that's so true. So when you're entirely exhausted and you've finished and you decide that that's enough now, it's time to go home, what do you do after that? Have you already kind of noted down the information that you want to keep fresh in your mind, or do you wait until you get home?
What I do is I take notes with pen and paper, because I'm not that great with my phone, I have to say. I write quicker with like pen. But when I go home, usually within a week, I make sure to write down on an Excel spreadsheet all my notes and what I want to do next. And usually within 1 week after the fair has finished, I try to send a follow-up email. Or if I don't have the email and I can't find it anywhere, then a LinkedIn message or at least something, so that they have my contact details. And then I make sure to decide how often I want to follow up. So usually I write something like, okay, 15th of September, I've sent an email to Sarah, and then I write in my calendar sort of like 15th of November, follow up. And then depending on what answer I get from you or someone else, then I can decide, okay, maybe I can follow up a bit earlier, or maybe I can follow up a bit later. Because some companies will not say anything. Some companies will just say, okay, we'll keep your details on file. Well, some companies might drop a comment that makes you think, okay, maybe I should focus on this one. Like a company 2 days ago replied to me saying, oh, thanks for your details. Actually, I'm not really happy with our translation department. So I'll definitely send them your details. So this is someone where you can actually think, oh, maybe I can offer you my free trial proofreading offer so that you can see how I work and everything. And then make sure to follow up, maybe per email, or I usually do send a postcard too to the companies that seem interesting too, because usually snail mail definitely gets to the desk of the person you write the name of. So it takes time, especially here in Italy where the post is not great. But this is something you can do. While an email might be like, it's definitely quicker, but sometimes it gets lost. Or sometimes the person says, oh, I'll have a look at it later. What else do I do? Well, yeah, that's it. And basically, I keep doing that. And also make sure if you go to the same trade fair, like the year after or something like that, to check if those companies are still there. Because this might usually be the case. You can let them know in advance, oh, hello, how are you? I've seen that you're like going to the fair. I'll be there too. And then make sure to visit them again, because you need to be on their radar too, or maybe they will have someone they can refer you to. So just be there. And also these are contacts that are easier to approach in a way. So it's also, maybe you can start like with those so that you can just have some small chat, and then you go to the sort of like more difficult ones, the ones you've never contacted before.
Yeah, and I mean, occasionally I go to events where my clients are exhibiting, and so
Exactly, yeah.
they're port of call, and you have a nice conversation with them, and then potentially they might introduce you to other people because they've been there. They know the other exhibitors, and so if you know, and also when people ask you, like I very often get asked, which company are you with? And then when I say, you know, I'm an independent translator, I work for myself, you kind of get this confused expression. Like, why would you come here? Basically, you know, that's what they want to say. Whereas if you say, oh, I work with a couple of exhibitors, for example, this one and this one, I've come to see them and you know, keep up with the industry and find out what's going on and learn a little bit, then it kind of seems to reassure them. They're like, oh, we understand now. Also that social proof and credibility that you work with one of these exhibitors, and therefore, you know, you could work with them potentially. So it gives you another kind of conversation opener.
Exactly. And also it makes sure that you sort of like follow up with customers that maybe you would not be able to visit otherwise, and they are all in the same place for a few days. And that's also important. And I think it also shows your customer that you're committed to like developing yourself, getting the latest insights and so on. So yeah, I mean, if you do happen to have customers there, definitely go and visit them. I went to a trade fair at the beginning of the month, and one of my customers was there, and yeah, I made sure to visit them, also because out of the two owners, there was one I had never seen before. So it was good, and it definitely reinforces the bond that you have with your customer, also because you never know. I mean, if you're there, someone else might be there too. So make sure that you show up and say, oh, hi, I'm your go-to translator.
Yeah, and I've also found because you're there and you're having that in-person conversation, which isn't always possible if you live like I live in the UK and my clients are normally based in Germany. You don't have that face-to-face conversation very often, so you can have a much more relaxed conversation, and they might tell you things that they wouldn't tell you in an email or kind of on a Zoom call. So I found, yeah, got some useful feedback from them and things like that.
Yeah,
with from different departments there, having like a conversation with you rather than just the one person individual conversations per email with all the different people.
Yeah, exactly. You get like a bunch of people all together that usually you might they might work like it, as you said, in different departments. So that's also a good idea. Another thing that I did was like I wanted to write a case study for my website, And going to the trade fair with like a draft of your case study, for example, ask your client, oh, would you mind having a look at it or something if you have some spare time? That might be like a good way to strike a conversation too with a like customer you already have. Something like, because there will be times for them at the fair when there is absolutely nothing to do and they will be bored. I mean, I've experienced the same. So that might be also a good way to sort of like reinforce the fact that you've been helping them so much. And I mean, maybe I was just lucky, but when I was there, they told me, oh yeah, do go for it and do publish on your website. Now I only need to publish on my website.
Excellent. No, that's really cool. And also when you're there, I'm very bad at this. I don't ask people for photos and things like that, but you've got the opportunity potentially to get a selfie or like some photos that you could add to social media or your posts as well.
I belong to the same club as you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm rubbish at taking pictures too, so like selfies are like far beyond what I can do.
I can imagine some people would be very good at
yeah, definitely.
Let's get the evidence. Yeah, let's get a photo together, and then you've got that you can share, and beyond just going to the event and meeting the people there, you can also use it afterwards, like you say, to write case studies or to write a blog post or to put it on social media. And
exactly.
I think that you do that as well on LinkedIn. Sometimes you say, oh, I've went to this event and these are my kind of impressions.
Well, yeah, I do that. And usually if you have a look at the pictures, like you think, oh, the pictures are rubbish, honestly. And this is what I usually... But yeah, if you are like a bit better with me, like than me, sorry, with your camera and the thing that most people are, yeah, you can do a lot of things with that. Also like take pictures of like that you like. Just ask before you do that. I mean, people will usually just say yes, especially at trade fairs that are open to the public too. Just ask, and then you might also put the credits. If you want to like keep in touch with that brand, that's also another good idea. Doing that, something like, oh, I've put this picture like on my like website or on Instagram or something. I just wanted to thank you for that. That might be an idea too. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, because I know somebody, I'm trying to think, I think another translator colleague called Sarah went to an event and took some photos and did a kind of summary of the event, and then used that opportunity to contact the people and say, I'd like to showcase you in this write-up of the event. And
good,
using the event as another way of getting in touch with people, and obviously they'll be, as long as you're complimentary about them, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to be featured in that, and it gives you another relationship as well. If you haven't managed to develop that relationship at the show, there are also ways you can use it afterwards, like you say, in the follow-up. And then I always find the follow-up is not equally as valuable, if not more valuable, because people are outside of the event bubble and they're back home and they're like, right, we have to get back to work and get this, make the most of these relationships, think about the next event, all that preparation.
Follow up is like, it's important also because usually you will hardly ever hear from someone like spontaneously. You have to like remind people, and sometimes people are not even ready to like work with you because maybe they have a lot of contacts with distributors for them, for example, or maybe it's their first time at that fair. They wanted to see how it goes before they make some sort of decision. So you need to sort of like be at the back of their mind when they think, okay, we do need translation, but who can we contact or something like that.
And I know that you go to quite a few events. How have you found it as a marketing kind of strategy? Do you find that you get a lot of clients out of it? Do you find it's quite quick to convert the relationship into translation client, or do you find it's a longer process with the follow-up?
I'd like to say, it's a quick process and it's painless. No, it's not.
No, I think it's longer.
No, I was quite lucky in one case because it was quite quick. I think it's like I had the right timing in a way. But usually it's a long process because, as we were saying, those customers might not be aware of the fact that they might need translations, or maybe they're waiting for some event to happen, like finding a distributor. This is like usually the case in the beauty industry, and then they might go on with that. Or maybe they have like tried like Italy as a market as the first time with some fair, and then they see what they get from there and then go on. So yeah, usually it's a long process, because one of the customers I got, it took me at least 1 year of like follow up, sometimes like commenting on the post, following them and so on, and then they became a customer. So it's a longer journey than for other customers, but and I have some like data. So if I got 2 direct customers and they make 2 direct customers and about 10 leads per event. So it depends. Maybe people who have like profited from the free trial offer, people I had like some sort of like deeper conversations in terms of like rates, what they need and so on, who have like expressed their interest. And those 2 direct customers I mentioned made around 10% of my income if I take into account the month from February 2021 to February 2022. Sorry, I don't have like more recent data, but it takes a lot of time to do this calculation.
So I would say in the last couple of years has been a difficult kind of market, and I know things are kind of opening up and businesses carrying on, but to get those results in the last year from 2021 to 2022 I think is brilliant.
I'm pretty proud actually, also because I think that these in-person events are still going to exist, because for a while some of the events I now attend in person went completely online. So basically you could sort of like go around a virtual fair, and then you could like strike a conversation as if you were on like a chat. But it's not the same thing. It's really impersonal, and I made a lot of contacts, but it's been really hard to go beyond the we'll contact you if we need your services, because it's really hard to sort of like get some like personalize your email, make sure that you have some sort of connection with that person. So I do like in-person events in this sense, because you meet a lot of people at the same time. You can make the most out of them, and people, as you were saying, might drop those comments that can make sure that you can really personalize your follow-ups. Something like, oh, as you were saying, you're not happy with your translation department, or something like, oh, as you were saying, you plan to translate your website first into English and then into Italian. How is the localization into English going? Or something like that, so that people know that you've cared, that you've listened to them and all that.
No, these are really great tips, and thank you for sharing your stats. That's really helpful. And if that doesn't convince people to give it a go, the fact that it does make a difference. And I think that in-person events, they've got a different energy, and I think that everyone should attend, like try them out, like try one locally if you don't want to go a bit further, and also don't necessarily put pressure on yourself to come away from your first event with like new clients, because it doesn't happen automatically, as you've said, unless you're in the right place at the right time. But it's a part of the whole relationship building process, developing those contacts. But I think the first event, if you were going to go to your first event, I would focus on understanding the market and just listening and having conversations with people to see what they say. And naturally it will come up that you're a translator, you're probably an international event where the company would have needed translation at some point, and just finding out kind of what they do, having those conversations, I think you'll get a lot from it, even if that's your only goal, like to understand the market.
Yeah, exactly. You can just go and say, oh, I'm a translator and I do specialize in this field. Let's say, oh, I do specialize in the medical field and I'm here to update my knowledge or something like that. And people will be First of all, I think admired and definitely more than happy to like show you their products or their services or something. Yeah, that's another approach you can use, especially if someone is really either shy or maybe not sure. Or you can also try different approaches on different booths, because not everyone is talking to everyone at a fair. So
They go and experiment. I think
exactly.
explore and go on a trade show adventure. I think it's well worth
Exactly.
time. Yeah. No, well, thank you so much for sharing all your tips and experience with trade shows. And if you're watching this video before November the 17th, Chiara is going into detail in a webinar for Translators. We'll put the link under the video where she's going to be talking all about trade shows and go into a little bit more detail, and you'll get the full webinar rather than just the questions that I'm asking you. So yeah, definitely go and check that out. And where else could they connect with you if people wanted to find out more about you? Where's the best place to go?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and Chiara Vecchi is a really common like first name and last name in Italy. But if you write Chiara Vecchi, you will definitely get my picture, or write something like Chiara Vecchi Translator, and you'll definitely find me. Or you can connect with me on Instagram, and I'm _cosmetics_translator. So yeah, or you can have a look at my website. It's www.chiaravecchi.com, and you can either contact me there if you want. So yeah, I think these are the 3 main ways to contact me.
Yeah, fantastic. No, thank you very much, Chiara.
Thanks to you, Sarah. It was so nice talking to you. Thanks.
Thank you.